Hello everyone, welcome to the video. Today we're going to be checking out something I'm super excited for. This is the Sony ZV-E10. Someone actually commented recently on one of my videos that and your next video is going to be unboxing and reviewing a camera for your videos because you got some dead pixels. And yeah, if you look closely, if we have bad lighting, there's like some dead pixels somewhere over here. There's some like over here somewhere. There's a lot of dead pixels on this camera. This is a very old Canon G7X, and I'm actually going to be comparing this to this camera here quite a bit in this video. So we'll see how much of a difference this guy is going to be. But let's go ahead and start with the unboxing. Here we have our Sony, again, ZV-E10. I got the kit camera that comes with the kit lens and the camera itself, just to get you started. I do intend on getting more lenses in the future, but having a kit lens to start is actually going to make things a lot easier for me. We have manuals here, or precautions, I guess. More instructions and things. And then right here is our camera. Look at that. So I'm used to my Canon G7X, which I thought this would be very comparable in size, but this is quite a bit bigger. But it also has a lot more features on this guy here. I also understand that this camera is not new. This is like a 2-year-old product. It's been out for a long time, so there's tons of tutorials and all sorts of resources on YouTube for this guy. So if you want to get one of these, it's not a bad time to do it because there are so many different tutorials and other options for you. So let's go ahead and continue with the unboxing here. So what else comes in the box? We have a little battery for it. This is the Sony NP-FW50. From all of the reviews I've seen, they highly recommend getting spare batteries. We have a charging brick here. This is a 7.5 watt charging brick, so that is going to be a slow charger there. It also comes with a USB-C charging cable. On the bright side, we're at least using modern charging, even though it is a 2-year-old product. I'm glad to see that. Here in a little piece of paper, we have our dead cat fuzzy. So this guy will just clip into our hot shoe. The nice thing about this one, my Canon doesn't have a shoe at all, let alone being a hot shoe. So you can actually plug this guy in and have more than just a fuzzy here. You can have lights and all sorts of things that would be powered off of the camera. But you got a nice little fuzzy there. Windsock. I'm so excited. This is much heftier than I expected. A lot of reviews I've seen for this guy talked about how this is a light and plastic frame, and compared to real big cameras, yeah, this is probably a very light and plasticky one. But from where I'm coming from, which is a Canon point and shoot that doesn't have a removable lens like this guy does, you push this button here and got a removable lens there. This is quite a bit of change. And lastly, we do have a lanyard or straps so that you can attach this guy and not drop your camera. And this is what comes in the contents of your packaging. Alright, so let's go ahead and start by opening up our bottom case here. We'll drop in our battery. Unfortunately, this did not come with like a battery charging brick. My Canon camera came with one of these. This is a little charger for it, so you can just drop your batteries in and have one charging while the other one is in the camera. However, this one, it only comes with a USB-C charging option, so you'll actually open up this door here on the side. This is a plastic door. I thought this might be rubber, but these are both a hard plastic door with what feels like a rubber hinge. This one's actually a hard hinge. For some reason, I thought I saw in the ads that this came with a little 64 gigabyte SD card. I was wrong. So luckily, being a video guy, I always have a few, and those will slide in here, just like that. Lock. One thing I'm really excited about is our little 1/4 20 camera screw here. It's right in the center. Right in the center underneath the lens. And I'll get to my batteries. On my Canon, I can't do that. The battery is literally like right next to the screw. Drives me up the wall. So anytime I have to change my battery, get my SD card, I have to take this little mount off. So now this can be permanently mounted. I don't have to sit there and take it on and off when I'm going through batteries. Let's go ahead and start by turning it on. I've had it plugged in here for a minute, so we'll go ahead and hit our on switch, turning it on for the first time ever. First thing it asks is, what language do we speak? Setting our area, time and date, daylight savings time, and then you can set it up the time and date format that you'd like. And now we can download the Sony Imaging Edge, the Imaging Edge app. This is actually a really cool app. I'll dive into this later, but you can use it to transfer files, but also use it to control the camera remotely. So the Imaging Edge app is going to look like this, and if we open it up here, we can see you can connect directly to our phone, and then from there, let's go ahead and turn this guy on, and then to connect, you'll go to our globe, and then down to smartphone connect, connection. Now it's on, say okay. It's now gonna connect here. There we go. So now we can import images from our camera. So whatever we have on our camera, we can download that, or we can do remote shooting, which gives us basically the options that to treat your phone like a external screen, things like that. So you don't have to push all the buttons. So if you don't want to like have camera shake, if you're doing stuff like that, we can use this to adjust all of our stuff from f-stop to modes to white balance to focus. All of those things can be controlled right here in the app. Pretty useful tool. I don't know how often I'll use it. I might find it useful just depending on how things go in the future, but right now, this right here in this package does pretty much everything I need, because for the past, I don't know, 10 years, I've been using either a cell phone or a point and shoot camera. Just this Canon G7X that I'm recording this on right now. There's our first photo with it. We have a button right here. This goes from photo to video to S and Q, which is slow and quick, which is slow-mo and time-lapse kind of stuff. So we'll push that to switch from the camera to show a video, and it seems to be pretty dang smart just out the box. Holy cow. Not messing with ISO. And let's go ahead and flip our thing out here. And instead of having to find a record button, this is a dedicated video record button. And this guy has red light here, and then also red frame around our screen here that flips out. With this on, it's really only pulling between 3 and 5 watts. It seems to be varying, but right now it's pulling between 3 and 5 watts. Check out, this is the 16 mil. I'm actually impressed with how close I'm able to hold this and get like all of me in frame. So this is the exact same distance away. You can see these are all 100% auto, doing whatever it wants to do. There's your the first test of comparing these two cameras, and oh my gosh, holding them next to each other is kind of wild. Actually, I'm gonna go ahead and turn off this camera and this one. We're gonna pull them both off, and we're gonna compare it here on my top-down smartphone. So audio quality is gonna be different. I'm sorry, but I really think there's gonna be some value in having. This is so weird. Oh my gosh. And this is only 1080, so out of the box, this does default to recording in 1080. I might go over some settings here, just some quick start settings, but then we're gonna go ahead and do a comparison of this camera versus that camera. So let's jump into that section. All right, so let's go ahead and start by hitting our menu button right there. This will take us into our menus where we can now change the quality and go over here. Our shoot mode is intelligent. File format, we don't want HD, we want 4K. And then 30 frames, the 30p is frames per second, 60 is the megabytes per second, so we actually are going to go with 30 at 100. A lot of people like the 24 frames per second. That's not me. Most of my stuff automatically records in 30. I'm not gonna really mess too much with that. So we're just gonna do a really high quality 30 frames per second just to match everything else. And then if you'd like your S&Q mode, you can go ahead and change whether you want it to default to high speed or low speed. We're just gonna leave it at the 120 at 30 frames per second so that it matches, which gives you a 4x slow-mo, as you can see right here. Another thing we want to mess with here is our steady shot. This is our video stabilization. There is a pretty tight crop on it when you have the stabilization on. So we're going to go ahead and go to standards. What that is, actually, I'm going to leave that menu open. So we have standard, active, standard, and off. Standard is if the lens itself has image stabilization, it'll use that. Active uses the in-camera sensor stabilization, so it actually crops in your image so that if there is shake, it can use the other parts of that sensor. Off basically just turns off image stabilization. But if I ever do put a lens that has image stabilization on, I'll just leave it on standard so I don't have to worry about that. And then next thing I want to look at here is under our video mode on page 6, we have zoom range. So I was kind of messing with that there on accident, but it is a 16 to 50 millimeter lens, but I don't want to use the digital zoom, and clear image zoom does that same thing. So we're going to do optical zoom only. I don't want to mess with digital zoom, down-resing the image when I'm zooming in, trying to mess with it. So we're going to do optical zoom only, which is our lens here. Also right here on page 7 of the video format grid line, I do like to have the rule of thirds grid on there. That's what I have on this Canon camera, and I kind of appreciate that. It keeps me on the third, and then anything else I have to present is over here. You can also create custom keys, things like that. I'm not going to mess with that right now. You also can connect your smartphone. I recommend turning this off to save battery life until you're actually using it. One useful tool to have is this monitor brightness. So right now it's at its default brightness for indoor use. But if we go ahead and jump in here and say sunny weather, it actually kicks up the brightness of our screen so that it's more visible in outdoors or really bright environments. However, this does drain the battery faster, so just keep that in mind. Also here in our settings mode, I'm going to go to display quality and up the display quality to high so that you can see more easily if things are in focus. Every once in a while on this one I can't quite tell, like, is it in focus? Is it focusing on me or focusing on something else? And like right now it has a little box over me showing that like my face is in focus, but like I'm trying to like get it to focus on this other stuff and it doesn't always seem to be grabbing focus. So yeah, we're gonna have our display resolution as high. And then the next thing we definitely need to make sure we're doing here under our settings on the first page, under power settings option, we want to come down here, auto power off temp. So we're going to turn that to high. When you turn it to high, this doesn't hurt it, it doesn't damage it, it just makes it less sensitive to overheating and shutting down so that you don't actually have video limits anymore. Like this camera here turns off after like 20 minutes. That one turns off after I think 30 or 40. But this guy, you should be able to continuously record for hours as long as you have enough SD card and power. Gotta unplug it to just our power saving. I'm gonna switch that to 2 minutes. So if you find that you like set up a shot and then you're stirring around doing other things and then it shuts itself down before you can start recording, it's easy enough to go in here to our power save setting options and then set our power save start time. So when it actually goes into power save mode and turns off, you can go all the way up to off, so it never turns off, or 30 minutes, 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute, 10 seconds. So I'm gonna set it at 2 minutes, we'll see how that does. Then here on page 4, we have our file folder and file/folder settings. So we can actually tell it how to rename our files. So I'm going to go ahead and rename this, kind of like an old T9 phone. There we go. So it'll say ZV-E at the beginning of all of the file names, so that we know that we're looking at the ZV-E video files. So I actually don't want you to get confused. So that first one I just showed you is for naming the pictures. This one right here below it, where it says file settings, That is for renaming the video files when they're saved. But otherwise, it's going to be a very similar process once you get into that menu. Okay, and this is one I was actually looking for. I know there's shortcuts you can get to it, but if your shortcuts are different, this is how you'll always find it. You'll go to your camera mode here, then we'll go to page 9. Under the soft skin effect, I'm going to turn it off. I do not need you messing with my skin. It is gorgeous the way it is. Also, I don't want to be that fake person on the internet. So some of the first things I do want to change here in our menu is going into our first page here on the camera settings, file format. I'm going to leave it as JPEG for now. You can do RAW or RAW and JPEG. It just takes up more space when you do that. But I'm going to do JPEG for now. Image quality, we're going to change that from fine to extra fine, get more detail out of it. We're using 24 megapixels, why not use all of them? And then aspect ratio is going to be something that you can decide for yourself. But these videos here are shot in 16:9 and uploaded on YouTube at 16:9, so I'm going to do my photos in 16:9 as well. Alright, and I think that got us to a good place to where we can go ahead and pull this guy off of our tripod and start doing a top-down comparison of that camera versus our new Sony ZV-E10. Alright you guys, so this is going to be my apples to oranges? Apples to apples? You know what? Tell me in the comments what you think. Are these two even in the same field? Well, they're both cameras, so we can say yes, they're both fruit. Let's say this is like a Honeycrisp, like a red apple versus a green apple kind of comparison. You can decide who's a red apple, who's a green apple, but these are very different in their, well, in so many ways. So let's go ahead and start with our lenses. Well, this lens does not come off at all. This one, you can push a little button here, twist that off, and now you can swap out the lenses for anything using Sony's E-mount system. To remount it, you have a little white dot here and a white dot there. You just align those two and then give a twist clockwise and it's on. The size comparison, just for starters, is quite a difference here. We're looking at we're looking at some very different cameras. This is much thicker. You're starting to see what I mean when I was saying like, hey, this guy is much bigger than I anticipated. I was expecting it to be about this size. This point and shoot, I can fit it in my pocket size. This guy's chunky. I was halfway expecting this lens to be smaller too, but it's not. It is a sizable lens, and it's only going to get bigger if you get better lenses and things like that. This is just a kit lens that's very basic. You can see here we're a 3.5 to 5.6 f-stop with a 16 to 50 zoom. This is a good place to start. It is better than this guy, the Canon. Unfortunately, when it's a point and shoot camera like this with a built-in lens, these numbers don't actually mean a whole lot. So this is more equivalent to a 24 millimeter lens, where this is a 16 to 50, so it can definitely compare. So from the top here, we have our on-off switch. This has a power button. We have the exact same zoom in and out, shutter buttons that you have press for focus. Then we have our mode switch right here, but on this one we have a mode switch here. One nice thing about this one is we do have a dedicated ISO adjustment right here. So when you spin this knob, you're adjusting just the ISO. However, you can configure any of these buttons to do whatever you'd like. So we can set this rolling knob here as an ISO adjustment as well. So right now this C1 button is a customizable button, but right now it is set as a background defocus button. So you press that, it'll autofocus, it'll adjust the focus to make up for that 3.5 f-stop. You can now go make it look even better with this C1 that'll give you a better defocus of your background. So moving around to the back here, we can see we have our flip out screen. So this one does flip out to the side while my Canon does a forward flip out. However, after about 5 years of use, it's not doing so hot. So I've dropped it a few times, and unfortunately a few times just in the past few months. So it's really taken a beating and it's not doing so hot. That's really what got me to pull the trigger on this Sony ZV-E10 is the broken screen hinge and all of the dead pixels. But let's go ahead and start comparing over here our buttons. So we have a menu button, we have a menu button. We have a function button, we have a function button. We have a little playback review button, playback review button. We have a record button. Well, our record button was up here, which makes a lot more sense to me, but there's a red record button back there. And then we have a dial with buttons on it, and then we have a dial with buttons on it, and then this one has a dedicated trash where this function button also is your trash bin. You can also see a little icon of like a box next to a person. That also, this trash can doubles as your adjustment to go into product review mode. We'll actually talk about that later. That's really the biggest reason why I chose the Sony ZV-E10. And then as we move over to the bottom of our cameras here, you can see we have a mount here for our tripod, and it obstructs nothing other than maybe this little speaker looking thing. I don't know. Not a big deal. Whereas down here on this one, I'm going directly over our access to our SD card and our battery. So if you need access to those things, you actually have to pull this off, which they put it as it's a flathead. Why is it a flathead? Oh, it drives me bonkers. A flathead? Only one of my tripods have this guy, and I love it. Oh, these are the best. A little thumb screw makes all the difference in the world, you guys. All the difference in the world. So, but now it's not that big of a deal. I can change the battery, no problem, just like that. Oh my gosh, it makes me so happy. I'm sure we mentioned it earlier, but our battery sizes are drastically different, where the Canon is about half the size of our new Sony battery. And then coming over to our ports side here, this guy has 2 doors for ports here, while this guy has just the one. We have a micro USB port and a mini HDMI, while this guy now has USB-C, mini HDMI, headphones out, and microphone in. How nice is that, right? This one does have Wi-Fi controls, so I imagine you could connect it to your phone and do file transfer and maybe even do some minor controlling. I don't know if they were doing that yet with this one. I've never actually dug into that. But let's go ahead and touch on the major differences between these two cameras, which is right here. This one has a pop-up flash, which is neat. I've never used it, but it's there, and it's neat. But this one, while it doesn't have a pop-out, it does have a hot shoe. So that means I can hook up a light, I can hook up a microphone, and it can draw power directly from our battery here in the camera to power those items. And you can have your mic directly plugged in here, boop, right there, and you're ready to run. So this guy is made to be upgraded, while this guy is not necessarily. You kind of have to work around and figure out things. You know, changing your batteries, mounting it on a tripod, all these things are a little bit just extra. While this guy, it's just asking for upgrades. It's like, hey, I'm going to be great for what you want to do, but just wait, you can do even better. So there you go. Those are our first impressions, first differences here from these two cameras. So you can see, and the worst part is that even the G7X Mark III, which is this series newer than this, still has a limit of, I think it's about 10 minutes on 4K recording. This can continuously record 4K. The Canon G7X Mark III, which this is not, costs almost the exact same as this one with the kit lens. So the value really is pulling towards Sony. The only thing that would have pulled me towards Canon is I really love how easy it is to just pick up the Canon and go. The color accuracy is fantastic. The picture quality is good. I've never had any actual complaints about this other than the pixels that have died and then my own fault of dropping it and breaking the hinge. So this guy, We'll see how well it lasts. I made sure to get the extended warranty on this guy for this, so if I do drop it for the next 3 years, it is covered. So I definitely would recommend that for you guys as well. Let's go ahead and test this out, do some A/B comparisons, see what I think, do audio testing. You've kind of already seen a little bit of that already, but we'll do testing of everything, comparing these two, putting them head to head to see how much of a difference and is it really worth going to the ZV-E10. All right, so I am now recording at full arm length right now, side by side in 4K for our Sony camera, 1080p for our Canon camera, and you two are right next to each other, left and right hand. We're filming at the exact same time. You can get an idea of what the sound is like with, like right now, I have like a babbling brook to my side right here behind me. We got traffic here. So you can kind of hear the difference between this Canon camera and the audio quality coming off of it versus the Sony camera and the audio quality coming off of it. What interference you may or may not hear. It might actually be a good idea to have headphones in right now so that you can tell how good or how different the audio quality is. Personally, just from my initial testing, I think the Canon sound quality is still markedly better. Am I full out? No, let's zoom in. There we go. Sorry, the Sony is zoomed out. There we go. Okay, so now you can see at full arm's length, this is what we see next to each other. So there we go. You can kind of gauge that. Sorry about that. This is a reshoot of that last section right there. So now we can really compare the differences.
Oh boy, how fast are you?
Alright, there are some real world comparisons of like the slow-mo where my Canon G7X only does 60 frames per second, this guy does 120, so you can get a much slower, smoother slow-mo where from one to the other. I must say, I'm really impressed with the differences. So it's pretty obvious, like obviously it records in 4K, it has a dedicated lens. These are some things that can make like some real big upgrades, and for considering these are so close in price, it's really hard to say not to go with something like this. While it does have its downsides, the upsides reasonably far outweigh them, just because there's so many other things that you can do with this than I can with my G7X. Even the new Canon G7X doesn't have all the same features that this offers, especially the interchangeable lenses. That's transformative for a video, like looking from one photo to another. I took a bunch of photos while I was out on that walk with my dogs, and you can see a before and after. The ZV-E10 is definitely greener, but also it does have a sharper image, a clearer image. And one thing that you will notice though is the focal length. While some things are in focus and more or less is in focus, you can definitely see the differences here as we're going through these photos here that I took in the park. One of the places that it really will stand out when I'm taking this picture of the canopy. With my Canon G7X, it's all black and all white. It doesn't have that ability to really break up that exposure. While this ZV-E10 is able to break it up, get a little bit more HDR, if you will, and you can really see the greens of the canopy and the leaves. it's really impressive the image quality you can get out of this guy for a starter camera. If you're just looking at becoming like a photographer, I am not the guy you want to look to for a review. However, this camera is fantastic because you can use these same E-mount lenses on a lot of the other Sony full-size cameras, or you can use full-size lenses on this one as long as they're all that Sony E-mount. And here's a really great example. I took two of the exact same photo and you can see how much greener the ZV-E10 looks versus the Canon. And then right here we can see a big difference. Like, yes, we can see the greens, but let's look at like the focus area here. So looking at the 8, it's always going to be in focus, yes. But look at this tree off to the right. In the Canon G7X, it's a little bit in focus, while the ZV-E10 completely out of focus. And then if we zoom in, you can see that it definitely is starting to get a little bit blurry, a little bit broken up. You can start to see a little bit of the pixels separating from each other on colors. Whereas if we go to the ZV-E10 and do the same amount of zoom here, we can see that our greens, this green is much darker, solid green, but we, especially looking at like the roof tiles here, there isn't that color separation in the pixels you can see there. It's a much sharper image. That's a big difference for being just a little bit more in cost. Overall, the big differences that I noticed just in like first go out testing is that the colors on this are much better. They're a little bit, I don't know, it feels more true or more green. I don't know what it is, but like, I just like the colors on this a lot better than my Canon. While the Canon colors on it naturally are actually really good, the automatic colors on this, and you can actually go in and change a whole lot of things on these. Like you can set it on RAW and like go in and do all that stuff. That is above my level right now. One day, maybe I'll be able to use 50% of what this guy can do, but right now, I'm just scratching the surface. I'm leaving it on auto mode. The only thing I'm messing with is ISO sometimes, but even that, I'm not messing with it very much. I initially started this video with kind of the mindset of, oh, I'm gonna turn this into a full tutorial for this guy. And I very quickly learned, like I said, I'm not gonna scratch the surface. I am not going to even be able to approach being a subject expert on any bit of this. However, I do want to go through and look at the whole menu on this guy, so I think I might make a boring video, but it's going to go through every single page of the menu in here and talk about what each setting does. And then it'll be something that I can then reference in the future, or you, if you have this Sony ZV-E10 and you're like, hey, what does that do? Or how do I do that again? You can go back to that video, reference that and be like, okay, this page, this, you know, this section, this page, this item, it does this. Or, hey, I can't remember how to get to this one thing. You can go back, watch through the video, and find what it was you were looking for. But that's going to come out in a few weeks, hopefully. Right now, let's go ahead and just talk about the pros and cons of this camera. Starting with the pros, number one, 4K. This guy can record 4K video, and it looks good. Like, compared to this that is 1080p, it is a noticeable difference. The next one is the battery. Oh my gosh, I can't tell you how happy it makes me. I brought it up at the beginning of the video, I'll bring it up again now. This is one of my big pros, is while I have my tripod mount on here, I can still access the battery and the SD card with our mount on there. It's like such a big upgrade that like it's just the little things that make a difference that Canon didn't really think of. Granted, it is also a much more compact camera, so we'll give some leeway there. Next one is the long battery life. They only send this one battery, and you have to charge it with a USB-C cable, but I'm impressed with how long this battery lasts once it is fully charged. I think I got almost an hour of video out of this guy in 4K. Canon has a G7X that does record in 4K, but it only lasts about 10 minutes before it overheats and shuts down. This guy will, if it's in a normal room temperature, as long as it's not outside in the sun on a hot day, it'll just keep running. It's fantastic. That kind of rolls into my next one, is no recording limits. This camera right here, I've been recording for 16 minutes and it's got a little red light being like, hey, just a heads up. Right when I said that, it cut out. Just a heads up, I'm about to start recording. And there it was, it just stopped recording. And it seems to be random. Like, is it 16 minutes? Is it 20 minutes? Is it 25 minutes? But it's never over 25 minutes. Like, this guy will just keep recording in 4K. Like, that guy is only 1080p. Right here, you're looking at me in 1080p. So huge difference there. And we've mentioned before, it has interchangeable lenses, so anything that has the Sony E mount will work with this. So you can go to any other brand online and find it. Go to B&H Photo, go to Amazon and search for, you know, other ones. Just make sure you filter for the E mount, Sony E mount. While people have complained about how small it is and how this kind of feels weird holding it like this, because like my my hammy hand covers all of those buttons when I'm wrapped around this. But the nice thing is even with this little kit lens, it's comfortable to hold it by the lens. And when you go to bigger lenses, it's going to be even more comfortable to hold it by the lens, and then you can just operate and click in things with this hand while securing or being steady with the left hand that's just on your lens itself. Like, that is arguably really great option right there. Having those interchangeable lens, but also just being able to, or comfortable holding it by the lens. When we just came off of the last segment here, we were talking about 120 frames per second. This guy will record in 120 frames per second, high-speed video in 1080p. Granted, it is in 1080p. You'll have to pay for a much more expensive camera if you want it to be 4K 120. If I'm filming high speed, which is pretty rare, 1080p, most people won't notice the big difference there. One other really cool one, which is kind of the big selling point for me, is this has a product review mode. Right now, my Canon will focus on my face. And if I cover my face, it'll then focus on something else. But if I bring my face back, even if this is right here, it's still focusing on my face. I'll put this right here in the screen, still won't focus on it. But if there's any object closer to the screen than your face, it will automatically grab focus on that. So granted, some people have complained, oh yeah, get your hands. Well, you can actually adjust your timing on this guy, so how fast it changes focus. And so it won't catch your hands, because your hands are typically moving. Unless you just leave your hands right here for too long, it'll then start grabbing focus on your hands rather than your face. But I really like the product review mode, because obviously I review products. That's what I do on this channel. That's what this is all about, is reviewing products. And so being able to focus on this, look at this little cool detail. The Canon, while this is in focus enough to read, it's not in focus. Big difference, and that is really the big selling point of why I got this over maybe even like a used nicer camera or any other camera that I saw on the market, is because of that product showcase mode. To access that, we kind of talked about it, but this trash can, when it's on, you can just push the trash can and it'll actually change it, and it'll say right here at the bottom, product showcase mode set off, product showcase mode set on, just by tapping that trash can when you are in video mode. You know what? I'm gonna go ahead and demonstrate it. So if I say, hey, check out my cool mug, read that. It's got this cool text on it. Can you read that? No, you can't. But over here on my new Sony ZV-E10, I'm like, hey, check out the cool text on this. Look at that. It's in focus, not my face. My face is still here, but this is closer. It recognizes that I'm showing you something, and so it's gonna focus on that. It can be like that. So I can be like, hey, check out these Think Plus headphones I got on, not Wish, what's the new Wish? Temu. Yeah, I actually still use them. Believe it or not, these Lenovo headphones, I still use these guys. Blows my mind too. They're not amazing headphones, but they're better than computer speakers in a home that has other noises going on. They at least drown out or block out some of that noise without having to be some big old studio gamer style headphones. I'm getting way too sidetracked here. So back to the things I love about this. So just talked about product review mode. The last big pro I have is the usable tripod mount. If I need to access the battery, I need to switch out the SD card, I don't have to take off my tripod mount. Oh, it's so wonderful. Ease of access to the battery. I think I talked about it before, but it's just so great. Now on to the cons. The list is markedly shorter, but let's go ahead and talk about them, because I think these things are also important to consider for you if you are looking at getting the ZV-E10, things that you should know. So the first thing is the sound. I kind of hate the sound. So because it has a hot shoe, I plan on swapping that out for a actual microphone, a shotgun microphone. If you guys have recommendations, leave those in the comments below, but I do plan on replacing the microphone on this. You can go back to some of my more recent videos. I've actually been recording on this guy for a while to test it out. So let me know if you also think the same thing about how this sounds a little, I don't know, canny. It doesn't filter out noise as well. It seems to grab more echo than necessary. Number 2 is, while I do really appreciate this dead cat, there are cat hairs everywhere. It is still shedding like 2 months later. It's all over my desk. I have 2 dogs. I don't need a dead cat. I do appreciate the dead cat because of what it can do, but I don't need all of the hairs. They're just everywhere. Number 3, it doesn't come with like a wall charging brick, where my Canon came with like one of these that you can put a battery on to charge it, and if you have a spare battery you can be rotating them out. This one, the only way it offers to charge it, and it does give you a USB-C cable to charge it and a brick and everything to charge it, but it doesn't. I would rather have this than have a USB-C cable. I have a million USB-C cables. I could charge that myself. I would much rather have something like this than a cable and a charging brick. Next one is the SD card. So I'm very happy about my ease of access, but the ease of actually removing it is, it's much more difficult. It can be really hard to get it out. There we go, I got it that time. But like, I often find myself trying to grab the little things there just to be able to get the SD card out. That is such a headache. I wish it was easier to get that SD card out. Like, granted, I could turn it upside down, but other times I don't always have that option. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm just being weird, but that is a negative. I wish it was easier to get the SD card out. And my last gripe or complaint is image stabilization. So it does come with image stabilization, but even that image stabilization isn't that great, and it does crop a lot of the video so that it can try to adjust for it. But even when it does, it's not that good. It's still kind of shaky, and I'm not a fan of the image stabilization on this. So if I ever use this, it's probably gonna be on a tripod. If it's not on a tripod, I'm gonna be investing in a gimbal mount so that I don't have to worry about it shaking. The gimbal will take all that out for me. The only other image stabilization it can do that I might recommend would be image stabilization in the lens. If you get an aftermarket lens that is not this kit lens, because this doesn't have stabilization, image stabilization, but if you get an aftermarket lens that has image stabilization built in, use that. But otherwise, the image stabilization on this camera itself, not that great, because it uses a digital image stabilization, not an actual physical. Where like even my Canon here, you can jump back to the beginning of my clip where I was outside. You can definitely see where like I'm taking steps and my hands are bouncing with this one, and my Canon just handles it like I'm walking smoothly. That's one big thing I'm disappointed about, is the image stabilization on this is not that great. So like I said, I'm probably not going to use 50% of this. Maybe one day if I get real into this stuff, I might use 50%, but if I'm getting to that point, I might be considering a different camera anyway. So I'm just scratching the surfaces with this guy, and it is a really great entry-level camera. And if you want to know more, you want to learn more, there are tons of videos, tutorials, training classes you can do online with this camera here. I recommend checking out Think Media. They have a really great tutorial. They actually have multiple tutorials on this ZV-E10, so I'd recommend go ahead and check those ones out. There's tons of other ones. Feel free to explore those as well. But this is my unboxing, my review of the Sony ZV-E10. If you think that this is the right camera for you, if you need that product showcase mode, that is exactly why I got this. And I think there are some people out there that are gonna love that, especially if you're like one of those like makeup YouTubers or whatever. You're always like doing this thing with the camera. Instead of having to cover your face, you can just put the object there and it's gonna focus on that and be like, hey, look, here's the label, the brand, the color, whatever it is. It's pretty cool. I like it. If you want to get it for yourself, I'm an Amazon affiliate, so affiliate links will be down in the description of this video. Also, I will have links to a lot of other things, so please feel free to explore. If you want to help support this channel with no additional cost to you, using those links are very helpful, as well as subscribing. It doesn't cost you a penny, and you can do that just by hitting that subscribe button. Also, give it a thumbs up to let YouTube know that you like this video. And if you have any questions or comments, concerns, I reply to almost all of my comments. So please don't hesitate to hit me up down in the comments below. If you have recommendations for future videos, future accessories, whatever you want to see, let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.